Here we are, we're working on some of the story problems from section 8.2, and we're going to do question 52 to start with. In 52 it says, given the diagram below, well, let's draw that diagram below. It has a triangle, and it says that in the diagonal they have a person walking. The diagonal is 40 feet. And it says that this distance is x, and this distance is x plus 10. And it asks, how much distance do they save by walking the diagonal instead of walking on the sidewalks here and here? Well, since this is a right triangle, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem that says a squared, which our a is a leg, and our b squared is a leg. So I'm going to go with x plus 10 squared. That's my a squared plus b squared. And the c squared is always the hypotenuse, which is across from the right angle. Gives me the 40 squared. Let's do some simplifying here. X squared. And when I square a binomial, I have to FOIL it out. So I'm going to say x plus 10 times x plus 10, just so I don't FOIL incorrectly. First times first, outside times outside, inside times inside, and last times last, equals 40 squared, which is 1600. Remember, we want to get everything on one side and use the quadratic formula. When I do the simplifying here, x squared and x squared gives me 2x squared. 10 and 10 gives me 20x. And 100 minus 1600 gives me negative 1500 equals 0. Now, I can plug this into the quadratic formula the way it looks, or I can factor everything by dividing everything by 2. So if I pull the 2 out front, I get x squared plus 10x minus 750 equals 0. Now, if I use this or the simpler form, I'm going to get the same answers. Doesn't matter which ones you use, you get the same answers. So here, if I divide by 2, it just goes away, right? Because 0 divided by 2 is just 0 again. All right, so let's use this in the quadratic formula. I get x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 750 all over 2 times 1. And let's see if we can do some simplifying here. 10 squared is 100. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 750 gives me positive 3,000 all over 2. And I get the square root of 3,100 over 2. Now, if you read the instructions carefully for this question, they're asking us to approximate to the nearest foot. So I'm going to need some help from my class here. I need the square root of 3,100 to the nearest tenth. The nearest tenth. $55.7 all over 2. Now, because my x is a side length, see how these x's are side lengths? Do I want to find the negative root here? And no, because if I have a negative length, you can't have a negative side length on a sidewalk. I've never heard of a negative length sidewalk. So I want to use the positive one here. So negative 10 plus 55.7 gives me 45.7 divided by 2 gives me 22.85 is the length of this one right here. So I'm going to call that 22.85. Now this one is 10 feet longer, so that would be 32.85. Now the question is asking not how long those sides are. The question is asking how much distance do you save by walking the diagonal instead of going along the outsides. So if I add these two together, I get 55.7. If I subtract from 40, because 40 is the diagonal, the amount of distance they're saving is 15.7. And of course, they said round to the nearest whole number, so 16 feet is how much you save by taking the diagonal instead of walking all the way around. The next one we're going to try is question 57. 57 says, a holding pen for cattle must be square and have a diagonal of 100 meters. So if I take and draw a picture of what's going to happen here, here's my square, my diagonal is right here, and they said that the diagonal has to be 100 meters, so 100 meters. And find the length of each side. Well, we don't know the side lengths, we just know the diagonal, but in a square, those lengths are the same. So I'm going to call both of them x. And when I do that, I get a right triangle here. So this is another right triangle question. So I'm going to take x squared plus x squared equals 100 squared. So I get 2x squared equals 100 times 100 is 10,000 divided by 2 divided by 2. I get x squared equals 5,000. And if I simplify that, in this one they want it in simplest form, they want it as a radical, not a decimal. So I'm going to say, well, this is 2,500 times 2. And square root of 2,500 gives me 50 root 2. So this side is 50 root 2, and this side is 50 root 2. So we answered the first part of it. The second part says what is the area of the pen? Well, to find the area of the pen, all we have to do is take 50 square roots of 2 times 50 square roots of 2, because length times width of a square is the area. So if I multiply this out, I get 2,500 times square root of 2 times square root of 2 is just 2, which gives me 5,000 square feet, because these are square meters, because this is in meters, the area would be in square meters. There's your two problems. Good luck.